I'm Don Fredrickson with the Senior Tech Club. By way of full disclosure, we were having some audio difficulties at the beginning of our live presentation this morning, just a few minutes ago. So I am going to re-record the introduction and then cut over to the actual live video about 8 minutes or almost 10 minutes into the presentation. So thanks for your patience. Those of you who try to attend, appreciate you coming to listen. This will give us a chance to revisit this audio and make it as part of our recordings going forward. So thank you so much. We are here to focus on Facebook. We live in an interesting time. We are desperately trying to stay connected with our friends and our family, and at the same time trying to follow the stay-at-home rulings, guidance, advice. And so we're always looking for tools. And so I do think that FaceTime is one of those tools that can help us. It is a tool that you can use to come face-to-face with your family and friends in order to share and commiserate. So what we are going to do today is we're going to focus on FaceTime. And so if you ask the question, what are you going to learn? Well, we're going to start out by sharing some ideas about using FaceTime to stay connected with your family and friends. We are also going to focus on the actions of making and receiving FaceTime calls. We're going to talk about the controls that you have available to you once you're in a call, whether you want to mute the audio or maybe flip the camera. We want to walk through the steps of doing a group FaceTime call. You can gather up to 32 of your friends together into a single FaceTime call. And then we're going to identify a couple of the accessories that might help the process. And then, of course, we'll take your questions at the end or talk about where you can learn more. All right. The housekeeping rules for these sessions, we've always intended these sessions to be like a group of folk just sitting around the kitchen table, just sharing about our devices. And the only way that you can give us feedback is to either do chat on the YouTube site, or if you want to send me a text message at this particular number. This is not my regular iPhone text number, but it's a number that you can use and I will follow up. Or if you want to send me a question, you can email me questions at YouTube or seniortechclub.com. Okay, why FaceTime? So we're looking to stay connected. We can stay connected with video calling. And most people would agree with me when I say that if we are talking about iPhones and iPads and Apple devices, that FaceTime is installed, it's quick to use, and it is easy. And in fact, I love this quotation from the realsimple.com website that they used when comparing and contrasting a number of the video conference platforms that were available to us. They basically said, anyone who has an iPhone can connect via FaceTime, which is probably the easiest video conference app out there to use. The easiest to use. It's so simple, even your grandma or your toddler niece can figure it out. Now, I don't know that I would take that ageist approach to describing this, but the point is, it is very easy to use. There are other tools available. One of the conditions of using FaceTime is you have to be connected to Apple devices. And so consequently, people will look to other tools if they also need to connect with Android devices or other, let's say, Windows-based platforms. Some of the other calling tools that are available would include Zoom, Skype, Facebook Messenger, and Google Duo or Google Hangouts. Now, some of these we hope to explore in some future session. When you think of a tool like FaceTime, the go-to scenario for FaceTime is that you have two people that are talking to each other face-to-face. But I wanted to take a few minutes to explore a couple of other options that people have shared and that we have tried too. So using FaceTime instead of a phone call is sort of that go-to position, that go-to scenario with FaceTime. Another idea, though, is how about conducting or sponsoring a happy hour with FaceTime, where you get a group of folks that are just sitting together, sharing a cocktail or two, and just sitting on the couch having a conversation. Consider doing FaceTime meals. I haven't tried this in my family yet, but I might, where you set up your device at the end of the table and you eat your meal while in the company of, let's say, a family member at the other end of the FaceTime call. How about reading books to your grandkids? You could use FaceTime to actually show the book, show your face, some combination of the two. We've done it. It actually works pretty well. Another idea is sharing time in the kitchen, where perhaps you are doing a demonstration of cooking a grandchild's favorite recipe or cookies, and you want to be able to share this. Another idea, I haven't tried this yet, but I'm interested in trying to play Battleship with my grandson. So taking a conventional board game and using FaceTime to show the board, show the reactions and the playing and the instructions. I'm really interested, as time passes here, for everyone in this community to share ideas about how we might use tools like FaceTime to help us stay better connected and engaged. So we are here to focus on the FaceTime app today. So FaceTime, by definition, then, is that Apple-supplied video calling tool that will work with any Apple device. Meaning you can do FaceTime calls between iPhones, iPads, iPods, or Mac computers. It will do quick and easy face-to-face calling, but you can also do group FaceTime calls with up to 32 friends. And so the first step in this process is that we are going to explore what it looks like when you receive a FaceTime call. Here we go. Let's talk about receiving a FaceTime call. I want you to notice on the screenshot that I have, and I want you to look at the two responses. Well, it turns out that if you are going to receive a FaceTime call, it is very similar to how it looks when you want to receive a regular audio call, right? It is really very straightforward. The two differences that you see on the PowerPoint slide on the left is really the only differences that you would also see if you have a lock screen, if your phone is locked, or if you have an unlocked screen. And so, for instance, you might be looking at your home screen. So as an example, I am going to launch a FaceTime call. I actually have another iPhone sitting over here on my right, and I am now receiving a FaceTime call. And notice that I can receive that FaceTime call. All right, and now I'm connecting in. All right, so now you are actually looking at two different images of me, across two different devices. And we got a little feedback in that process, right? The point that I wanted to make is that process of answering a FaceTime call, very similar to just answering a regular phone call. No particular problem. All right, let's continue on. We're going to make a FaceTime call, right? And it turns out that I'm going to present to you three different approaches to making a FaceTime call. We're going to talk about creating a FaceTime call in the FaceTime app. We're going to use the Contacts app. And then my favorite, which is actually starting a FaceTime call from a regular phone call. So the first one is making a FaceTime call in the FaceTime app. All right, so to get this process started, I am going to launch the FaceTime app. Now you see that on the right-hand side. And what you're looking at is a log of all of the recent FaceTime calls that I have made. All right, so in this particular case, if you notice 2A on the left-hand side, all you have to do is to tap on one of the items in this log, and it will launch that FaceTime call automatically. Couldn't be simpler. So the more you use it, the easier it actually becomes. If you come in to the FaceTime app and the person that you want to do a FaceTime with isn't on that FaceTime log, then what you are going to do is type or tap on the plus sign that is up in the upper right hand corner. So you tap plus, right? And at this particular point, you have a couple of options. Right? One option is to just start typing. And I'm going to type JU because I have some people in my contacts list that we can do FaceTime calls with. Now, something that I think is kind of interesting when you take a look at this list is, not every device is FaceTime eligible, and that we cannot do FaceTime with Android phones, right, as an example. But this list does a very nice job of identifying FaceTime eligible devices, right? And so in this particular case, all you would have to do is to tap on one that you want to call. And at this particular point, if you want to make a video call, you simply tap on video and that call process would launch. I want to show you the other thing that you get on this particular screen, and that is if you want to access your contacts list, you can tap on the plus sign. All right, the plus sign over on the right-hand side of the list, and this will then take us into your full contacts list on your device. All right, and so if we just review then, how do we make a call right in the FaceTime app? Number one, if you have a list of folks that you have called previously, you can simply tap on one of those items to recall that person. Secondly, if this is a new caller, you can tap on the plus sign, and at this particular point, you can either type or you can tap on the plus sign in order to get to your contacts list. Once again, this is a case where your communication is actually enhanced by having your friends and family and so forth in your contacts list. Next item. It is also possible for you to make a FaceTime call from the contact screen of a person, right? So as an example here, I'm going to go back to my home screen, and I know that on my main screen, I have my contacts app, right? This is also possible. Many people access their contacts app from inside the phone app, but I'm going to go directly to it. So I tap on contacts, and I am going to search for Sally. All right, so this is a contacts app. I'm going to search for Sally student who happens to be in my contact list. And you notice that there are actually two vehicles for us to do a FaceTime call with this person directly. Number one, you can tap on FaceTime right under the person's name, or there is a second FaceTime function just down below, and you can see that on my slide on the left-hand side. Right? So by way of demonstration, if you want to tap on the FaceTime, which I have done right there, I am now launching a FaceTime app, and this call is underway. I'm going to scratch that. All right, so that's how you make a FaceTime call from the contact screen. Really pretty simple. The final item, I was going to say one other note that you will see in this process, in that in your contacts list, you will have the names, you'll have people in your friends and family that have gone over to the dark side and are perhaps using Android devices. And one of the things you'll see would be very similar to what you see on my slide on the left, where if this is a contact record for an Android user, the FaceTime is going to be grayed out. FaceTime is not available for your Android devices. Another option for us is to make a FaceTime call from a phone call, right? The process would look like this. You would actually make a phone call, just a regular phone call using the phone app. And then during that particular call, you might say, hey, hi, Sally. Hey, let's take this phone call over to FaceTime. And if you look on the slide over on the left-hand side, you will notice that there is a FaceTime icon. Works great, all right? And in fact, I really recommend this as a strategy, particularly for our community, to do FaceTime calls. Right? Number one, you can establish the line of communication and the conversation already. You can actually ask the other person if they are ready to do FaceTime, and it takes just a single tap of that FaceTime icon in order to make that call. I think that it is a courteous way of doing a FaceTime call, and there is no simpler way of making a FaceTime call, because after you've created the phone conversation, you can do it with a single tap. Now, to just demonstrate this process, I'm going to call my wife. All right, Joan has volunteered to participate in our session this morning, and so I'm going to give her a call. We're just going to have a quick hello in the conversation, and I'm going to ask, are you ready to do FaceTime? I'm going to demonstrate the single tap in order to make that call, and we are off and running. So Joan's in my favorites. I tap. We are making the call. I'm going to go on to speaker. Hi, Joan.
Hi.
How you doing?
Good.
All right. So good. Hey, let's go FaceTime. And I am demonstrating to my group that with a single tap, we're going to go on to FaceTime. The only thing that Joan has to do on the other end is she has to accept the FaceTime. I just tapped it, and I'm waiting for Joan to set up, and there she is.
Hi.
Once again, hi. We'll see you in a bit.
Okay.
All right, so the key thing in this process, there is no simpler way to make a FaceTime call. You do that audio call, and you have it up and running. All right, I want to talk for a second about some controls that you have during the call. And so these are things like being able to mute, being able to just switch the cameras. All right, so I have a call coming in from Sally's student, and if you remember, this is nothing more than me over here. This is Sally's student on the right-hand side. This is me right here. Something that I did not talk about earlier when I made this call is that, clearly, you have to have the phone positioned so that the camera is picking up the image that you want to pick up. You are able to see yourself in the little box on the upper right, and then you are able to see the person on the other side of the call within the bigger screen. What I wanted to show you is that if you tap in the center of the screen, that you bring up a set of controls, right? So one of those controls was the mute button, which I just tapped on now, so we didn't get this feedback from having two FaceTime calls in close proximity to each other. So that is one of the items that you might use, is that you might use the mute function. Right? Similarly, down again in those bottom controls, and by the way, the way you got those controls is you just tapped right in the center of the FaceTime screen. And so now, if I wanted to flip the camera, meaning instead of the camera facing toward me, which is the normal camera that you'd use for FaceTime, that you could flip out to the other camera. And so in this particular case, now you are looking at my little studio setup here, right? So I'm giving you a tour of my house. If I flip the camera back, now you're back to my face. Flipping the camera is a thing that you might do is if you're giving somebody a tour of your house, or you would simply like a little bit better camera if you're sharing a cooking demonstration or something like that. And then finally, during the call, when you are ready to end the call, you have a red X down at the bottom, and the red X is going to be your vehicle in order to end the call. So I'm going to tap on the red X here, and that call has been ended. I think the trickiest thing about that process is that as you're in the midst of a FaceTime call, it is not obvious when you look at the screen, how do you get to those controls? And remember, all you do is just tap on the center of the screen. Those controls will come up, and that gives you the ability to mute your microphone in order to flip the camera or to end the Facebook call. All right, let's talk about group FaceTime calls. This is a relatively new element that's available in FaceTime. And unfortunately, I do not have the equipment here to set up to do a demonstration of this, but I do want to show you the controls and how you would be able to set these up. Right, so here's what you have. If you have an iPhone that's a little bit newer, 6S and later, so in other words, your iPhone 7s, your iPhone 8s, your iPhone 10s, and your iPhone 11s would all have this capability. They do have to be running at least iOS 12.1.4 or later. You know, the current version of iOS is the software that runs your devices. The current version of iOS is version 13. So if you're fairly up to date, you would have this ability. When you do this, you have the ability to have calls with up to 32 people. You'd have to have 32 friends or family in order to bring together. Now, that's going to be a fairly complicated call. You're going to have a lot of tiles. You notice on the screen, on the slide, is there are 5 people on that call. If you get to 10, you pretty much fill up the screen. And I do want you to note that the person who is talking, the person whose audio is coming to, will be focused on the, we'll get the focus in the center of the screen. Okay? Now, how do you make a group FaceTime call? Right? Well, the simplest way to do it would be to launch your FaceTime app. And excuse me here, I have to get my display back. Okay, all right, is to launch your FaceTime app, right, as I just did. And now, rather than tapping on anything, what you're going to do is you're going to tap on the plus sign at the top. And now in the box, you are going to enter multiple people. So for instance, I could say I want to include Joan, I want to include June, and I want to include Judy. Right? And at this particular point, you tap on video, just like you see on your slide on the left-hand side. You tap on video, and that would launch the FaceTime call with those 3 individuals. Right. Another way that you can do a group FaceTime call is to start with a group text message. All right, and so I am going to go to a text conversation that was happening yesterday. And I just want you to note that up on the top where it tells me I have 3 people here, that there is a FaceTime icon up on that information screen. So if you notice on the slide on the left-hand side, I have an arrow that points right to the FaceTime app. It's sitting right there. I could tap on that icon and a FaceTime call with 3 individuals would launch. All right, so in a summary of that process, what I would do is if you want to start a group FaceTime call, I would just launch the FaceTime app and enter your 3 people. This presumes that, particularly for our generation, that everybody's expecting the call, that you've prearranged that this would be happening. You can just pull those people from your contacts database and go from there. I want to spend a second talking about troubleshooting if something doesn't work or some things that you happen to see. All right. I have never seen an iPhone that came out of the box without the FaceTime being enabled in the settings, right? But I did want to bring this up just in the event that your system is not at all responsive to FaceTime. What you would do is you would have to go into the settings app, like I'm sure you've done many times before. And on the main screen of the settings app, you are going to scroll all the way down until you see FaceTime. You tap on FaceTime, and there is your green. One of the things I always get used to saying in my classes that I do is green means on. And so if you see green next to FaceTime, that is your indication that your FaceTime has been turned on. Here's another screen that you can potentially see. We see this a lot with my grandson in that he cannot resist tapping on buttons and other icons in the midst of our FaceTime calls. All right, so if you see that paused message, all you have to remember is that FaceTime needs to be the app that's in focus. It needs to be the app in the center. So that if you're in the midst of a FaceTime call and now you go off to your Safari browser because you're going to look something up or you're going to respond to somebody else's text message, when you move away from the FaceTime call, it will put FaceTime call on pause, right? The video will be on pause and it will come back, however, once you restore the FaceTime being in the focus. All right. I wanted to talk for a second about some accessories that may be useful as you get into this. One that we use in our house fairly frequently is this small little tripod that we use that has a smartphone adapter on it. Now, this happens to be a tripod that, where your smartphone will simply fit onto it. And now you can set it on a coffee table if you're doing a FaceTime happy hour. You could set this at the end of your dining table in order to complete your call. It's a pretty handy device. Now, this little tripod comes with 2 items. Number one, there is the tripod itself. This one is one that has flexible legs, right? By the way, it doesn't have to be one of these types of tripods. You can very successfully use a conventional photography tripod, but you probably would need to get a smartphone adapter. Either that or figure out some way to use rubber bands to fasten it to the tripod. But I like these smartphone adapters as a way, and I'm going to unscrew this. So it is just a device like this, which will hold your smartphone and attach to any conventional tripod. I always chuckle when I think of going out and getting a tripod. My recommendation is if you are ever looking for a full height, conventional photography tripod, I would go to your local thrift store, whether it's a Goodwill or Unique or Savers or any of those. In that, I almost every time I walk in there, I'll look and find a tripod for $5, your best deal. Now, I know for certain that our local Goodwill stores are not open, but you might want to keep your eyes open for those. By the way, when you go to the page of this um, uh, live session, the live to page that you might have found the link, you will find down in my lessons at the bottom, you will find a link to the accessories descriptions of these components, along with links that'll take you over to Amazon in order to purchase them. Okay. So what did we learn? Well, aside from having some audio issues at the beginning, by the way, I hope I am actually recording this separately. So I'm hoping that maybe I'll have some audio on my local version of this. We'll see. All right. But what did we learn? Well, we learned how to make and answer a FaceTime call. Very simple, very straightforward. You discovered that when you answer a FaceTime call, it's actually very similar to answering a phone call. You just have to be ready. You have to look good. All right. In other words, actions that you take during a call, it's a little bit hidden. You have to tap on the center of the screen, and that'll then give you access to a mute button or flipping the camera or ending the call. I went through the steps of creating a group call, right? And that is nothing more. Go to the FaceTime app, tap the plus sign, put in multiple people. And finally, I tried to share a few items that we have started to explore in our family using using FaceTime in order to do a happy hour, cocktails, using FaceTime in order to share a meal, read a book, take a tour, do a cooking demonstration, play a game, play a board game. There's all kinds of possibilities. If you come up with something new, something different that you'd like to share, I'd love to get a text or an email from you about how you have used it. And then finally, if you have any follow-up questions, you are very welcome to send me an email at questions@seniortechlab.com, and I'll get back to you. I'll try and answer that. And finally, you can go to this site, links.seniortechlab.com/live2, in order to get to the page of this session. And on that page, you will find our online recipes, our recipe for doing FaceTime. You also find that list of recommended accessories that I use. And later on, you will actually find a recorded video of this session. Yes, and it probably will include the sessions at the end. I have one more quick thing. I have a couple minutes yet before we come to our 45 minutes. I wanted to share with you one item. Right? I wanted to share with you one item about our, a sign of our times. And that is, last week, in our house, we received our Costco mailing. Right. Normally, every month we are Costco members in our house, and every month we get a mailing that lists all of their sale items. Right. And this month they sent us a mailing, and they said we will not be mailing out our April savings book. Instead, starting Wednesday, April 15th, you will be able to view the savings in a variety of ways, right? And one of the things that you see on this mailing, I know it's really hard to see it from here, but there is a QR code, right? A QR code is the code with the little squiggly lines on it. And I just wanted to remind you, having seen this, I just wanted to remind you that it is possible for you to scan these QR codes with your phone. Let me do a quick demonstration. To do this, you're going to tap on the camera app, right? So you use the camera app. And by the way, now you're looking at my screen. And what I am going to do is I am going to put the QR code in the viewer. Now, you don't even have to take a picture when you scan this QR code. If you notice at the very top of the screen, there was a banner that appeared. And that banner allows us to go directly to the site that was indicated. And so in this particular case, it takes me directly to the April specials for Costco. By the way, I have a nugget where you can read more about that process of scanning a QR code. You're starting to see these QR codes show up all over the place, and your phone is able to scan them since about iOS 11 or so, and all you have to do is point the camera at it and look for the banner that shows up at the top of the screen. Okay. We are going to end our session today. Thank you very much. Thank you very much for your patience related to our video or our audio challenges front end. Thank you, Kathy, for raising your hand, saying that we had an issue. And please remember that every Monday and Thursday during this crisis, we're just gonna sit around the kitchen table and do some sharing of some of these tools that you have available to you. So please stay well, stay at home, wash your hands, and we'll see you online. Thanks for coming.